the late Supreme Leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, which we've seen the funeral of him today. I showed the footage of his funeral. He was so he reshaped everything in the aftermath of Khomeini. You see, when it comes to the Iranian political system, we have different organizations communicating with each other. You have the I mentioned, that the Supreme Leader of Iran is chosen by the assembly of experts in Iran. I mentioned expediency council, which was wrong. I made a mistake by mentioning that. But when we have various organizations in Iranian sort of government, so there is a system there. The reason that I'm mentioning this, because in the West, you don't see that much of explanation about how does Iran work. You have to understand a system. If you're the enemy of that system or you want to destroy that system, at least you have to know what is in that system. What are the components of that system and how does it work? So you have the assembly of experts, which are basically the elites who are people are voting. People usually vote for them, or usually it is, always the people, they're chosen by people, by the votes of the people, Iranian people. They go to the polls, they go to, they vote for these people, and they get to the assembly of experts, and then they choose the Supreme Leader of Iran. And the other organization, which is so important, is the Guardian Council. The Guardian Council and the Expediency Council, they're working together. What is happening in the parliament, usually in the Iranian parliament, when there is some sort of differences, we have 2 parties or 3 parties fighting each other. They want to get one of the resolution passed. So it goes to the, after passing a resolution in Iranian parliament, it goes to the Guardian Council to being ratified by the Guardian Council. It's so important. It's not coming from the parliament. After the parliament, you have to send it to the Guardian Council to ratify that. So when there is a difference between the Iranian parliament and the Guardian Council, you see the second organization or the third organization coming along, which they call it Expediency Council. So they decide who's right, who's wrong, who's better, whose understanding is better on that resolution. Or they may vote in favor of the parliament, or they may vote in favor of the Guardian Council. This is the way that it works inside Iran. So it was somehow created during the first Supreme Leader of Iran, Khomeini, but it somehow it was improved. The whole process of communication between all these different parts of the Iranian government was improved during the leadership of Ali Khamenei. So this is one of the achievements on his part. I think look at the institutions or organizations today, it's so complicated, the communication. I was trying to simplify what's going on, but it's so complicated, more complicated the way it is today. And then we have the Iranian, Security Council. The Iranian Security Council, basically, they call it Supreme National Security Council. You see all the officials in Iran are part of, the main officials in Iran, part of this, the head of, you have this president of Iran, the head of parliament, the head of judiciary system of Iran, the head of army, the head of IRGC, and you have the foreign minister of Iran, the minister of internal affairs and the minister of intelligence. They are all part of the Security Council. You see, none of them is mostly dependent on the parliament and the government of Iran. And there are 2 members coming from the Supreme Leader of Iran. They're part of that, Security Council. 2 members that are chosen by the by Supreme Leader of Iran. They're part of the Security Council, and the Security Council today is so important. And for the war, basically, when the war has happened between Iran and the United States, the Security Council was the main decision maker for the war, for the continuation of the war, and for the strategy of the war, because all these people are coming together, communicating and talking, and finding a solution, for what was happening before, during, and after the war. This is the way it works. I think what is so important about the Supreme Leader of Iran is that he created a new system in Iran, politically and militarily. Politically, today, Iran is not dependent. It was always the case when it came to the Iranian history. We had the kingdoms, long history of Iran. Iran is not is not a young country. It's a pretty old country, and have some history. Some book says it was 70,000 years, 7,000 years of civilization. It goes back long, long before. But considering the kingdoms, the kings of Iran during various dynasties, you see something like 250, yeah, 2,500 years, more than 2,500 years of the kingdoms, various kingdoms. You see, the legacy comes from the kingdoms, the kings. It always, Iran had a king up there. The king was responsible for everything. Everybody knows how the kingdoms work. So even before the revolution happened in Iran, we had a king. When the king came, the Shah of Iran, when he left Iran, the whole system collapsed overnight. It showed how the whole system was dependent on one person. And that person is not there anymore. The whole system going to come down, somehow collapse. That was the outcome of, the whole history of the Iranian civilization. Basically, it was all about the kingdom, and he's responsible for everything, deciding about everything. We had in 1953, we had, the prime minister democratically elected by Iranian people, which was removed by CIA and Mossad, Mohammad Mossadegh, and he was removed in favor of the Iranian Shah, the Shah of Iran. And then after the removal of Mossadegh, you don't see any sort of democratic process inside Iran to choose, the representatives, officials. It wasn't that much when it came to the president, supreme leader, or it wasn't supreme leader. The king of Iran was basically responsible for everything. He was becoming the sole superpower in Iran. So the revolution, when it came to the revolution and aftermath of the revolution, and the coming of the new supreme leader of Iran during those days in 1989, and which was this late supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, when he came, it was a system which was, Khomeini was not that much in power, because when he was the supreme leader of Iran, it was all about the war, managing the war. And but then he got sick and he was in hospital. There was a lot of problems. So basically, it was something new for the new supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, during those days. He had to start something new. And many people who were trying to simplify the whole system in Iran as a system which is totally dependent on one person, if that person is not there, the whole system would collapse. And before the war started between Iran and the United States, I was arguing that this is not the case. This is not the way Iran works. But you always have, those so-called Iranian experts outside of Iran who try to sell. I don't know how to call. They're different, people outside of Iran trying to be the Iranian experts, And they're saying that the Iranian expert, you see them on CNN, on Fox News, and those people who are close to the son, the son of the Shah of Iran, who is, Reza Pahlavi, or these people. The main argument on their part was that the whole system is about to collapse. We have to start something against Iran. But they were somehow ignorant of the fact that Iran has been, the transformation within the Iranian government was so huge that the system is not dependent on a person, on a single person anymore. I think what was proven, no, what was proven after the assassination of Ali Khamenei, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was it was shown that the whole system, how powerful and how, you know, how strong, how mighty is the system to keep itself running. And that was shocking for many people who were arguing outside of Iran, those Iranian experts, or those people who are getting these sort of expertise from the Iranian so-called experts, which are part of the NGOs trying to redefine Iran the way that those NGOs want Iran to be defined. This is the problem. When you pay somebody to do something for you, they're going to say whatever you like to hear. This is the problem. The whole system is so much corrupt. And when they wanted them to do to make their understand, to explain the way Iran works, they basically say Iran is this and that is a regime. The people are not happy. The people are coming out. The people want to topple the regime, and so the regime is getting weaker as time goes by. They're so weak. The military is not that powerful. They're trying to capture everything. The economy is under the thumb of the IRGC, and their people. So the corruption is going to the roof, and nothing is working there, and everything is collapsing. This is basically the summation of the Iranian experts outside of Iran. But you have to understand, you have to be honest with yourself. As these people are not telling us here what is the reality. The reality was the system was so powerful, was so much, independent of the people who are running those organizations, those institutions. And you remove one, you replace it with another person. It doesn't matter, With the assassination, just imagine how many of Iranian commanders so far have been assassinated. Iranian scientists, Iranian commanders, supreme leader of Iran. This was huge for any country. But that all the sort of the strategy of assassination comes from your when you don't understand a system, and that then you make false moves, you make some wrong moves toward that society or that country, which it was Iran, because the understanding was the supreme coming out, let's remove the supreme leader of Iran, the whole system gonna collapse, and people gonna fight against each other to gain the power inside Iran. Then the United States gonna come in and say, oh, we're gonna favor these people over those people, and we're gonna put someone in charge in Iran, and we're gonna grab the oil of Iran, which was lost during the British, the United States. After, I forgot to mention that after, Mossadegh, which was removed from power in 1953, one of his achievements was the nationalization of the Iranian oil, which was under the British control. So he was so important. He's so important for the history of Iran. Every time I talk, I would mention Mohammad Mossadegh, because the guy is so important for the Iranian history, and nobody can ignore that. That was the main reason that the CIA and MI6, and during those days, they removed him from power, because Shah was somehow cooperating with them. But the guy was not that much into cooperation with the West. He was basically concerned about the Iranian people and the Iran as a country than cooperating or selling somehow Iranian resources to the West. So the whole concept of the Trump administration, the war against Iran, came based on the same sort of a strategy that even if we start something against Iran, if we remove the Iranian supreme leader, so you see these people inside Iran, as they try to say to this day, Donald Trump keeps saying that they're fighting amongst each other. They're fighting, and so let's see what would happen. There are people in Iran who want to talk with us. There are people against us. Yeah, to some extent, that's right, because this is the way that each and every country works. You always have the differences in the sort of minds, in the sort of strategy in within a system, because it's not dictatorship. Iran is everything except a dictatorship. There is no dictatorship. You see, I many of you may not know what is the system and how the system works in Iran, but there is no dictatorship within the system. You see, most of these officials are mostly criticizing the whole system every time. They come out and say that this part doesn't work, that part doesn't work, this part is so corrupt, and this is not something new. Because when you imagine that the system is a dictatorship, then these sort of differences gonna get bolder, because you say, if in that dictatorship these people are talking about the corruption, they're going against the dictator in the country, so that's important. We can remove that. We can replace the leadership with these people. It means that the system is cracking from within, which wasn't the case, by the way. Iran's just like here in Brazil. I live here in Brazil. I see the system. The two parties are fighting each other. Basically, in each and every country, you see these forces within the society fighting each other. They're trying to redefine the strategy of the country internally or externally. And when it comes to the foreign policy, they have their differences. Inside the country, they have their differences. The same is happening in Iran as well. You have the reformists, you have the people, the conservative people, you have the people right in the middle of these two. So this is a society. This is the reality. These are people. These are human beings. You have to understand that. And there is nothing like dictatorship. And whoever tries to sell this sort of rhetoric that this is a dictatorship, this is a regime, is just collapsing and this and that, I think they're trying to manipulate the whole mindset in the West. And I don't put the blame on these people, Iranian experts outside of Iran, because they're paid by the NGOs, by the government in the United States, because they want to hear these sort of arguments. They want to hear this sort of expertise. So they're deceiving themselves by manipulating the whole understanding. They themselves are manipulating the information. It's not because of those experts. They're forcing them into that direction. This is the problem of the whole system. It's not something new, by the way. I saw that with the case of Russia. I saw that with the case of China. And you see these experts coming out and talking about these countries. They have no clue. They have no understanding on the reality of the reality of what's going on in those countries. This is a huge, sort of vacuum when it comes to the foreign policy of the United States. And the country, United States, is so important when we talk about the decline of an empire, because the decline is happening. But the United States, it doesn't mean that the United States as a superpower gonna disappear from the scene. No, that's not the case. The United States is gonna be, I would say, the United States is a very important country as a country, and the influence they have when it comes to the power of dollar and to the power of their economic system, the military power. They're important. And one of the superpowers, if we assume that we have three superpowers, Russia, China, and the United States. This is the understanding. So the United States is, for such a long time, was the sole superpower. And just imagine before this war started, and many people thought that the United States, if the United States decides to go after Iran to start a war, even together with Israel in the region, and they're gonna bring down everything. And many of these people, these politicians, these reformists, I would say, they bought into that sort of concept that this is the end. But who were against this? Those conservatives in Iran, they said, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to fight it. We're not going to bend. And they were right, to be honest. They were right. And so coming back to what has happened with the leadership of Iran, he has created the whole, the war. I think the main question right now is who's winning, or who has the upper hand in the ongoing conflict between Iran and the United States. I would argue Iran has the upper hand. And how did Iran achieve that? Did they achieve it by negotiating with the United States? Did it Was that an outcome of the negotiations? No, that wasn't the outcome of the negotiations. Unfortunately, the whole system, the foreign policy of the United States is based on zero-sum game.